Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zheng. Not long ago, the Wall Street Journal reported that senior diplomat Liu Jianchao, seen as the Chinese Communist Party's next foreign minister, was suddenly taken away for investigation. The reason was unclear. Many Chinese language media said Liu's downfall showed Xi Jinping was losing power, but inside sources claim something even bigger. Behind Liu Jianchao's fall is a shocking plot by the CCP and Russia, a plan to trick Donald Trump. So, what is this plan, and will Trump fall for it? Today, let's talk about this big revelation. Former Peking University professor Yuan Hongbin, now living in Australia, revealed that Liu's sudden investigation is tied to a political plot between Xi Jinping and Putin to deceive Trump. Liu Jianchao is the head of the CCP's International Liaison Department. This department mainly runs party-to-party diplomacy, targeting socialist, labor, and left-wing parties worldwide. After Trump won a second term, this department secretly submitted a report to the CCP leadership on how to influence him based on the CCP's principles for conducting United Front work. The report pointed out that based on past experiences with Western political parties, one key principle in using money and seduction is this: if the offer is big enough to make refusal embarrassing, the United Front work usually succeeds in most cases. The report further analyzed that for Trump, money alone clearly wouldn't be tempting enough to change U.S. national policy. Also, since he's over 70 years old, he's not likely to be swayed by romantic interests either. So the report concluded that the only thing that could strongly tempt Trump is fame. In the narrow view of Western politicians and scholars, the Nobel Peace Prize represents the ultimate honor and the most likely pursuit to capture Trump's interest. Therefore, if the CCP uses a cleverly disguised United Front strategy to spark Trump's desire for a Nobel Peace Prize and push him to change U.S. national policy, it's the most realistic plan. It's also the most feasible way to get Trump to make a deal with the CCP on the Taiwan issue. In other words, the core of the secret report is that the CCP plans to use the Nobel Peace Prize as the main bait to lure Trump into changing his stance on Taiwan. Yuan Hongbin said that Liu Jianchao's case is directly connected to this secret report. As we know, since the era of Jiang Zemin, corruption has become a normal way of life for millions of CCP officials. No official is clean or free from corruption. That's the true picture of the CCP's political scene. Naturally, Liu Jianchao is no exception. Since Xi Jinping has held absolute power for 13 years, he's used anti-corruption campaigns as a tool to purge those who aren't loyal enough to him. These endless purges and cleanups have targeted officials who don't meet his standard of absolute loyalty. The massive wealth seized from these officials has become a key source of funding for Xi's aggressive militaristic policies. This has left millions of CCP's officials living in fear, constantly on edge, feeling like they could lose everything at any moment. Over the past 13 years, Xi has ruthlessly purged nearly 7 million CCP officials, not counting their associated white gloves. Especially after the CCP's 20th Congress, Xi launched a so-called self-revolution within the party, turning the blade inward to target members of his own Xi's army who he believes aren't loyal enough. As a result, even though Liu Jianchao is part of Xi's own camp, he has been on pins and needles, terrified that rivals eyeing his position might expose his corrupt and immoral actions. In this situation, Liu Jianchao tried to make a deal with a certain major country. He planned to hand over a series of CCP secret documents, including the report about using the Nobel Peace Prize to lure Trump into compromising on Taiwan. Liu intended to use these documents as a bargaining chip, a kind of pledge of loyalty to secure a deal with this country. It was his backup plan in case he faced a purge. However, Liu didn't know that one of his female secretaries was part of Xi Jinping's surveillance system assigned to monitor him. So, before he could carry out his betrayal, he was already detained and placed under house arrest. According to sources from Beijing's political circles, after Liu Jianchao entered the investigation process, he claimed he was framed by Foreign Minister Wang Yi. He refused to admit guilty and even accused his female secretary of having an affair with Wang Yi. At the same time, because of Liu Jianchao's case, the contents of the International Liaison Department's secret report about using the Nobel Peace Prize to deceive Trump started spreading within Beijing's political circles. Yuan Hongbin also mentioned in his YouTube video that when Putin recently met with Trump, he claimed that if Trump had been in office, the Russia-Ukraine war wouldn't have started. Shortly after, Trump said that Xi Jinping told him that as long as Trump is US president, Xi wouldn't invade Taiwan by force. Yuan Hongbin believes that the strikingly similar statements from Putin and Xi raise suspicions that the two have been communicating, possibly even hinting at a major political conspiracy. Yuan Hongbin also said that his sources in China believe Trump wants to broker a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire to weaken the de facto Axis alliance between Russia and the CCP. However, this strategy is unlikely to succeed. The reason is that Putin's national strategy for Russia is to restore the territory of the former Soviet Union, and Xi Jinping has already made a secret deal with Putin, agreeing to support Russia in reclaiming all former Soviet territories in Europe, including the Baltic states. At the same time, for the former Soviet republics in Central Asia, China and Russia would effectively co-govern them. This is the secret agreement Xi and Putin has reached. Yuan Hongbin said the US obviously cannot and will not support Putin's demands for all of Europe's territory. So, even if Trump pushes Ukraine to accept Russia's terms to enter the war, it's unlikely he could break the evil axis between Russia and the CCP. On the contrary, if Trump helps Putin force Ukraine into a humiliating ceasefire, ceasefire, it would severely damage the trust between the US and Europe. It would also make divisions within NATO more obvious, which aligns with another Putin's strategic goals to weaken the relationship between the US, the Europe, as well as among NATO allies. However, Yuan Hongbin believes that Trump will prove he won't be fooled by the deception of Xi Jinping and Putin, the two dictators. While preparing this episode, I did some fact-checking. Trump has indeed shared posts on social media multiple times about how his diplomatic efforts led to several Nobel Peace Prize nominations. He's also subtly complained that no matter what he does, he won't win the Nobel Peace Prize, which shows he does value the award. Of course, recently he also said he hopes to earn a ticket to heaven by preventing wars. So, do you think Trump will succeed in ending the Russia-Ukraine war? Can he break the alliance between Xi Jinping and Putin? Or will he be deceived and misled by them? Drop us a line and tell us what you think. Next, I want to share with you a short video and several slogans found in public restrooms in Beijing and what they mean for China's political climate. The video shows a tap releasing dirty, dark water. In front of it, someone quietly displayed a written note. Xi Jinping, on September 3rd, you will be blown to death. Some curse words followed his name, which I won't repeat here. Some say the incident took place in Beijing, though I have not been able to independently confirm this. What is certain is that the note itself is real. September the 3rd is the date the CCP has chosen to hold a grand military parade to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory in the War of Resistance against Japan, even though the CCP barely fought in that war, which was primarily won by the Nationalist Party. Reports suggest the parade will cost hundreds of billions of RMB, yet no chief commander has been announced, even with only 8 days left. This points to a fierce internal struggles at the top of the CCP. Now let's return to the graffiti. One message read, September 3rd, military parade. The CCP should have perished long ago. 100 years of slavery is enough. Today, delivering 9 meals to the government office. Syringes loaded with rat poison added. Perish, CCP's dictatorial running dogs. The writer was implying that as a delivery worker, he might poison meals bound for CCP officials. Another store bore the simple words, dictator, step down. A third declared China wants democracy and rule of law. Together, these slogans have come to be known as the restroom revolution. In fact, it is said that after graffiti like this appeared, Beijing authorities began requiring ID checks to use public toilets. After I posted these photos online, a Chinese follower left a long comment. It captures why these slogans matter. he wrote. Witnessing the protests in China today, I feel this is not a sudden outburst of the start of a profound shift that could shake the party's foundations. The key point, he explained, is that the tacit contract between the CCP and the people has been torn apart by the zero-COVID policy. The contract was simple. The party guarantees economic growth and stability. In return, the people gave up political freedom and keep silent. For years, most citizens accepted this bargain in exchange for prosperity. But under zero COVID, doors in cities like Shanghai were welded shut, residents trapped for weeks, food and medicine cut off, businesses collapsed, and youth employment soared. The party itself destroyed the stability it had promised. As he put it, this was outright breach of contract. The trust that sustained the system has collapsed. Once that trust broke, anger changed in nature. At first, protesters criticized zero COVID itself. On Beijing's Sitong Bridge, banners read, "We want food, not COVID tests, and we want freedom, not lockdowns." But during the White Paper movement, chants escalated to "down with the Communist Party" and "step down Xi Jinping." The furor sharpened further. Even toilet stalls, one of the last unsupervised spaces, began to bear glued graffiti like NMLGB, like this one. It's a vague internet insult and explicit death threats against Xi himself. This, my follower noted, was no longer political petitioning. It was hatred and contempt. Graffiti in restrooms may seem trivial, but in a society blanketed with AI-powered surveillance cameras and strict internet censorship, even mild criticism is risky. People are fired, detained, or worse for speaking out. Thus, toilet without camera become one of the few places where people dare write their true feelings. This is not a show of strength, but, as he said, the sorrowful outcry of those driven into a corner. In a system that blocks all outlet for dissent, people resist as anonymous individuals, leaving behind desperate words in hidden places. China under CCP rule is built on strong personal worship, just like in Mao's time. Xi Jinping is not only a political leader, but exalted as the core of the party, his thought elevated to absolute truth. To defile that authority with vulgar insults is more than mere anger. It is an attempt to strip away the aura of divinity and show him as a hated mortal. It is a direct assault on the very legitimacy of the system. Of course, the party still has intense surveillance and repressive power. Large-scale rebellion might not erupt soon. But my follower compared today's system to a sealed pressure cooker. By blocking all release valves for public frustration, media, protest, even private talk, the regime keeps up an image of stability while pressure only builds inside. At some point, it will not be a small leak, but an uncontrollable explosion. And as he concluded, this ominous sign has already appeared. It is literally written on the walls of toilets. Do you agree with him? Well, that's all for today. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also visit my website at jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation. Any kind of support means the world to me. Thank you, and see you next